You have a few fruit trees, fantastic. Or you're planning on adding some. Fruit trees can be a lot of work unless you minimize maintenance by, first, you're gonna design your planting. Then you'll probably order and plant your trees. Finally, you'll have to maintain your fruit trees, and that can be the most important part. This year I've done almost nothing in this orchard. We did a little bit of pruning in the spring, late winter. A lot of the orchard is not even pruned at all. Then we did have a little bit of mowing. So normally I don't even mow. I mow in the spring once or twice, and then I don't mow all summer. But this year we had such a wet summer that I did mow. Usually I just run a roller crimper through the orchard in July and August so that the grass is laid down, and it does a great job. As far as spraying goes, this year, zero spraying. Think, wait a minute, spraying, you have to spray if you're growing fruit trees. Well, if you design right and you choose right and you choose disease-resistant cultivars, and we were fortunate we had a very dry spring, I didn't spray and the trees worked well and the fruit turned out well. One part of maintaining is irrigating. We have an irrigation system under each of the trees, and it's watered automatically with a simple controller. You can, even if you have 2 trees in your yard and you want to water them automatically, you can get very simple battery-operated controllers that hook up to a garden hose so that your trees will get watered on the schedule that you choose. Look into it, because making sure your trees water regularly is just an important part of maintenance. You don't want to lose days in the year where the tree is just parked and stopped because it doesn't have enough water. So consider irrigating, and especially consider irrigating automatically. Please don't stand out there with a garden hose and water your trees by hand, unless for you it's therapeutic. Most people's biggest concern about growing fruit trees is, what do I do about insects and disease? Don't I have to spray? Well, we covered spraying for disease. Just choose the right cultivar so you don't have to spray. But what about insects? Well, insects, you got to distinguish. Is it affecting the leaves or it is affecting the fruit? I am no longer concerned with insects that can cause some damage to leaves. Why? Because they're a non-issue in our orchard. But insects that cause some damage to fruit, yes, we do against 2 of the insects, codling moth and apple maggot fly. Both of them, we set up these traps. Codling moth traps, we set them out around bloom, apple bloom time, and they work very well. The insects go in, they drown, and that's the end of that. For apple maggot flies, we set out these sticky traps, which are meant to simulate an apple that's ripe, and the insects come and they get stuck and they die that way. So both of them prevent me from, don't prevent, but avoid having to spray. Isn't that what you're aiming for? Trees in your yard that you don't have to be spraying? It can be done, and you can do it. Choose wisely and trap as needed. So with minimal maintenance, what can you expect as results? Are you going to get perfect fruit and perfect leaves? Probably not. But you know what? You'll get some damage, maybe on the leaves, maybe on the fruit. Is it acceptable? I usually aim to get 50% quality fruit. And yeah, for some trees like plums, it's way more than that. For pears, it's still way more than that. Apples, depending on the cultivar, we can get around 50%, or some of them even a little less. And those are the ones we sort out to get rid of those trees. Because you know what? I want easy, low maintenance trees. And every climate, every country has trees that basically you could say they kind of grow like weeds. You hardly have to do anything and you get good results. That is really the goal. If you only have room for 1 or 2 trees, or if you want to put in a small orchard and you get trees that you planted them, you maintain them for a little bit to get them going, and when they begin to produce, you get quality fruit with minimal maintenance. That is the goal. And it is possible. Often if you buy a tree, the places that are selling you the tree almost always sell you more than just trees. They'll sell you treatments, how to keep the tree in great shape. Chemical inputs, sprays, get you on the treadmill, and then you keep coming back and back and back. Choosing wisely is so important. Get weedy trees, fruit trees that are weedy, that grow so well that you think, this is growing like a weed. Because that in the end is going to make it so much easier for you to reach your goal of minimal maintenance. You want to find out all about getting low maintenance fruit trees? Check out our maintenance course at permaculture.study and start today for free. Design is the cornerstone. It's the basis. It really is designing your fruit trees to go away from the image you're probably used to, which is you're growing an orchard, you're going to have an apple orchard or a pear orchard or a peach orchard. No! Run away from that monoculture mindset. The design I'm talking about is integrating the second point, which is diversity, right into the design of the orchard. So we use a simple system. Originally, it really worked well to think lazy. I called it the NAP system. NAP, N was nitrogen fixer, A was apple, and P was pear or plum. That was the original design. But as we evolved the orchard, we realized, that's not really representative, because in some parts we have fruit trees and we have nut shrubs in the case of hazelnuts or other nut species. So now we call it trios, and that's where it's 3 trees is the basis for the pattern, and it integrates that diversity right from the start. And it's so much nicer to have not just the same thing. You can harvest different fruit types, you can harvest at different times. And the other part of the different times is because we have a whole orchard, we schedule rows by harvest date. Even if we have pears and apples or plums in the same row, they all are harvested in a 10-day window, and we call it the grocery store concept. So that design is important. It's designing to get away from monoculture and integrating diversity. But diversity goes so much further. We don't just diversify our orchard with the trees, we diversify trees, shrubs, and perennials, and then we have the grassy aisles. So each of those are important to adding your diversity. Trees, great. So they're diversified, and that gets me to about 60 to 80% of solving all the problems. Then having trees and other plants underneath, primarily fruiting shrubs, herbs, flowers, and perennial vegetables added underneath. So for each tree, for example, we'll put a couple of fruiting shrubs. They could be gooseberry, they could be black currant, they could be red currant, they could be haskap, and rhubarb, we consider that a shrub because they get to be very large. So just adding plants underneath, if you don't add something underneath, something will want to grow. So you decide what you want to grow under your fruit tree. And then we have the grassy area that you will need some way to access. Maybe you're putting them in a lawn, so great, have the lawn. But don't necessarily keep it as a lawn. Use this grassy aisle space to grow wildflowers, to add flower diversity, which will attract wasps. And that's the third element, having and inviting insects and birds to do a lot of the work. Springtime, birds take care of all the caterpillars in our trees. That's fantastic. Summertime, some birds, but mostly moves to wasps. And wasps, I don't like wasps. They are the most useful insect with the fruit tree. So if you don't like them, work on it. Allowing birds and insects around your fruit trees is important. As a wildlife biologist, I could not wrap my head around the idea of spraying for an insect while at the same time it kills a whole lot of other insects, or spraying for a fungus and killing all the other fungi around. We need to understand we can have a functioning ecosystem around our fruit trees. I call it a permaculture orchard, and we need many more examples of permaculture orchards all around the world. Will you have one?